The board has concluded this call.
All discussions and interactions are meant for educational and entertainment purposes only. They're not intended to breach the ATA Code of Conduct, single out any student or educator, or diminish professional integrity in any way. I'm Conrad Drover. Join me as I sit down with inspiring professionals from diverse fields to gain valuable insight from their experiences and knowledge to help me grow as both an educator in the classroom and as a person in all areas of my life. This is Professional Development. Today, I'm joined by Marc Geller. Marc is a theater and television actor who currently captivates audiences as the face and voice of Kier Eagan in the hit series Severance. In our discussion, we explore Marc's insights into the story of Severance, his initial audition with Ben Stiller, and his experience bringing Kier to life, including the unique challenges of portraying a character across different eras. Marc also shares fascinating insights into the art of acting, offering his perspective on empathy, presence, and the magic of storytelling. Beyond Severance, we connect on our shared appreciation for great storytelling and take an exciting detour into the realm of horror movies, discussing what makes them so compelling. This episode is honestly a must-listen for any Severance fan, aspiring actor, and really anyone who loves a deep dive into the craft of performance and the power of story. If you enjoy this episode, be sure to follow, subscribe, and leave a review. It really helps the podcast grow. Now, let's dive in. Thanks for coming on, Marc Geller.
Thanks for having me.
Me and my fiance, our Friday nights are dedicated to like Severance. Like it's a Severance night. And we just finished watching the season finale with the statue or like the animatronic version of you.
Animatronic.
Like, wow. Yeah, I listened to a previous podcast that you were on, and you're like, you specialize in inanimate objects.
Well, I did a play in 2023 at Arena Stage in Washington, D.C., and I played a kind of a Zoltan machine called Karnak. It's actually a Canadian play. You're in Canada, right?
Yeah, Alberta, yeah.
It's a Canadian play called Ride the Cyclone that I did in Washington, D.C., and I played a robot, basically. So, yeah.
Nice. So you got some experience.
I do.
Maybe you have experienced this when people are trying to interview you, and I get caught up in it, is I have to remember I'm interviewing Marc Geller, not Kier Eagan.
You can interview both. That's fine. I'll respond.
Might be a little terrifying on the other end. But I get that from some of the stuff that I've watched with Rainn Wilson, like the guy from The Office that plays Dwight.
Mhm.
He says that like people forget that he's like another person, like he's not Dwight from The Office because they get so absorbed in that role.
Well, that's because you know Kier better than you know me.
Yeah, and that's like precisely it. There's I guess an asymmetry, right? Because I have a relationship with a character that doesn't have a relationship with me.
Correct.
So yeah, what I'm really interested in, because I know you have like a theater background before any sort of television or voice acting has ever happened.
Mhm.
And as a teacher, I try to foster students' dreams and their creative endeavors and try to prep them for the realities of life. And I find as a teacher, I'm really good at like setting them up for university, figuring out, okay, what classes they need to take to get to this. If they want to go into some trade like welding or anything like that, I can sort of lean them in the right direction. But what I found with a lot of teachers, including myself, is that when a student comes up to us and be like, "Oh, I want to be an actor," right? Sometimes we have the tendency of just like, "Oh, like you had a real job," or like, "No, that's probably not going to pan out." And what I really want to do is I sort of want to pick your brain about your, I guess, journey from, starting, let's say, wherever your schooling started or ended and how you got here and sort of the pathway that a student could expect if they're trying to get success in your industry.
Okay. I pretty much started when I was about 9. There was no one in my family who was in any way in the arts or in theater or anything. Uh, I was putting on little shows and stuff. And then I saw in our local paper that a children's theater school was opening in the neighboring state. And I convinced my parents to send me to it. I went there for 5 years from when I was, 9 to when I was about 14, I guess, about 9 to 14. Uh, when I was 18, I decided to move to New York, came here and started acting professionally in New York. I took a lot of, classes in New York with, different teachers I had heard of, different, classes that were recommended to me, and, that's how it began.
How did you know where to start? Like, assuming you had some sort of side gig, like waitering or like doing some sort of odd job while you're trying to get parts, right?
Yeah, I didn't really know where to start. I came from the smallest state in the United States, which is Rhode Island, which is a tiny little state. So coming to New York was vastly different.
Exciting though.
Yeah, very much so. The first job I had here, that was a regular survival job, was I was the front desk reception person and phone voice for the Muppets for Jim Henson.
Oh, cool.
And I was hired because they liked my voice. So I did that for about a year while I was auditioning for things. I mean, there are so many different routes to go. There's the university route. There's the non-university route. I did not go the university route. I came right after I got out of high school and then just took individual classes with different people who were recommended to me in the city and just started auditioning right away.
Yeah, like almost like a leap of faith, but you kind of got it, and that's some luck, I guess,
There's
put
a
onto
lot of
that as
luck
well,
involved.
right?
There's a lot of luck
Yeah.
involved all the way through. Even now, there's a lot of luck involved being in the right place in the right time or being what they're looking for. And it's a very, uncertain profession, and if you're not, uh, willing or able to deal with constant rejection, it's not the right profession for you.
Yeah, I kind of got I guess a taste of that, starting this podcast, right? It's like sort of you throw out 50, 100 invites, you're likely to get 10% of those that reply back to you, and then even a smaller percentage that, you know, agree to come on, right? So
Right,
I guess that's on a smaller scale, right? But my livelihood isn't on the line,
right.
and that's, I guess, the pressures.
I mean, you can audition, multiple times a day and be rejected multiple times a day until you get something. So if that's gonna dissuade you, then you're not gonna be successful because you have to be able to just keep not taking it personally and rolling with the punches and going back and going back and going back until someone says yes, which hopefully they'll eventually do.
And was that expectation, I guess, ingrained in you during that theater school, like 9 to
It
14?
was, it was, and, in addition to the theater school, I also, during those years did lots of community theater and, things like that. I dealt with adults a lot. I was with adults a lot doing that kind of thing, so, uh, I was prepared for it. I knew what it was. I knew what I was getting into, but knowing something and experiencing it are very different things.
A lot of what like, the bones of whatever we're talking about when it comes to film studies is, somehow communication of emotion, like, no matter what that is. Presence is a huge thing in Severance. There's so much environmental storytelling with that, and whether that's the lo-fi, sci-fi of, like, the technology they use or, I guess, the lighting, but what also comes to mind is, I guess, your presence as the voice of Kier, and I guess the depictions of you have with, like, the very eerie Black Mirror-esque artwork, right? And I was trying to tell my students, there's so much communicated in these environments, in these pictures. And I guess the question I'm trying to boil down to right now is when you're taking the character of Kier or you're doing the voice of him or you're trying to portray him in terms of empathy, like you're trying to empathize with this creature of a character. How do you impose that presence that we all see and feel and hear? You probably watch the show yourself. So
Sure.
when you watch the show, you're like, "Oh, god damn, that worked." Like, how, what's your thought process in making that?
Well, you have so many tools in your tool bag to use, uh, and I have half that many because I'm just a voice. All I have to use is my voice. So I have to, make you feel what age Kier is, how sickly he is, or how well he is, or how powerful he is with my voice. So, it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Yeah, like, I guess that but limitation like that fosters creativity, I find.
It does very much. And with Severance, you're working with the best people in the business who are all at the top of their game. You're working with the best cinematographers and directors and actors and prop people and costumers. And, you're working with wonderful people who really know what they're doing. So you really have to rely on them a lot as well.
Do you find there's a lot of, like, career, lifelong learning, like, with that? Do you
Sure.
try to pull from what your coworkers?
I think with every different job you do, each job is a lot of learning. It's a learning process constantly, always. Um, Usually also I'm by myself because for the Perpetuity Wing voiceover or the Woes Hollow voiceover, I'm just in the studio with Ben. He's telling me what he wants and I'm recording it with him and a technician. When we finally got to the finale, for timing purposes, I had to be on set with the other actors while we filmed that episode, which was great because I had other people to interact with, which gave a whole element, and that was great.
Yeah, I think it's probably similar to, like, when you have, like, big visual effects movies and the actor's, like, staring at a tennis ball.
Exactly.
You sorta gotta make that all up in your mind when you're in, like, the studio recording.
Right. I'm usually staring at nothing. And so during the scene with Trammell, I actually got to watch Trammell. I actually got to watch the animatronic figure, and I could connect to that. That helped a lot.
Uh, Good question. How tall are you in real life?
I'm
Are
5'7".
5'7".
I'm quite
So is it accurate when they said the statue's 5 feet tall, then it's or
5 inches taller, but it's even more
yeah.
than that. I was saying to somebody on a podcast interview that I did that line was not originally in the script. We had a read through and it was not there. And then afterwards, Ben really enjoys photographing things. He likes taking pictures of everybody and everything. And he wanted to do pictures of me next to the uh, mannequin figure, and also with me moving while it moved to do the same thing because he actually had the joystick in the actual filming as well and was moving
Oh.
the head and the arms. So he wanted to take some pictures of me doing that. And because it was so much taller than me, the statue is probably like 6'3". It's big, really high. Uh, when he wanted to take the pictures, I couldn't get anywhere near the head with my head to be in the same frame. I was way up on my toes, and I turned to him and I said, "Why is this statue like 5 inches taller than me?" And then the next day when I came into film, it was in the script.
Oh, that's awesome. I remember when Severance came out, and I was like I saw, like, Ben Stiller. I was like, Tropic Thunder, Ben Stiller? Like, I was like, "Is this a comedy?"
Yeah, you think Zoolander or Meet the Parents, something like that. Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Blue Steel.
Ye yeah, it's Magnum, actually.
When I went in for my audition, which consisted initially of an interview with Ben and with Dan Erickson, the creator and writer of the show, and also with one of the producers in Ben's office at the studio, waiting to go in, you think, oh, is he going to be Zoolander? Is he, what's he going to be like? He's nothing like that, actually. But so it was really interesting. It was very interesting.
Yeah, because I guess that, that asymmetrical relationship we were talking about earlier, you probably had that to some extent with Ben Stiller because, Zoolander or whatever you know him from.
Right. I knew him as an actor. I did not know him as a director or as a person. So I just knew him as an actor from his films.
How did that land on your table, like the Severance job?
I got an audition. They were looking for somebody to be the face of Kier Eagan, originally just for one painting. It was going to be, my guess is it was the painting that hangs in MDR, but I don't know that for a fact. Um, I had to go to the studio, as I said, for an interview in Ben's office, which is also interesting because, usually if you go in to meet a director for something, the director isn't the movie star. So there's
Right.
that
Yeah.
interesting quality too. Um, so I went in to meet with him and with Dan Erickson, as I said, and we talked for a while. And while I was waiting to go in, I saw, 10 or so other guys who were all around my age with very different types and heights and, body types waiting to go in. I went in, I had my interview. It went very well. It was about 15, 20 minutes. We talked and we got along well. We laughed. And I found out a couple days later through my agent that I was cast as the face. And then about 4 or 5 months after that, they, during those 4 or 5 months, they expanded it from the one picture to many pictures, and then it kept expanding. So, to date, there are probably like 50 paintings and sculptures and statues and things of me that they have now. But they decided they wanted to do some voiceovers too. So my agent got a call from them asking if I wanted to audition to be my voice because they had hired me to be a face. They didn't know if I'd be good or not as the voice. And so I did. I recorded the Perpetuity Wing speech for them a few different ways. And my agent sent it in and they liked it and said, yes, now you'll be the voice too. And that's how I became the voice and the face of Kier Eagan.
I guess the perpetuity wing, that was the first time we heard, like the audience heard the
That's the
voice.
first time you hear me. And in the Perpetuity Wing, the direction from Ben in the studio was he was on his deathbed. He's very old. He's like, 98 or something, and he's about to die. And he's recording this on one of those old Edison tapes, like, the cylinders, and it's scratched. And then when we get to Woe's Hollow in scene 2, when I'm doing voiceovers about reading from the book about the brother Dieter, uh, he's not quite as old and he's not quite as sickly. And then when we get to the final episode of season 2 and on the animatronic, he's a lot more vital and a lot younger because it would be awfully boring if I were like, dying and coughing 1,000 years old while he was trying to have a comedy routine with me.
Yeah, so it's like, I guess you're playing one character, but like through multiple eras. So that,
I'm getting closer and closer to being alive, sort of. I'm very old, not quite as old, a little younger. So
yeah, I really hope they like do some sort of flashback.
I hope that as
I
well.
guess yeah, if they want to, make it canonically accurate, they'll have to give you like some like big high rising shoes or something like that.
Well, I think the intention is that he was not that tall, that he's just
Oh, right, yeah.
a narcissist and made himself bigger because, you know, I'm sure that it was probably made after he died too, would be my guess. So he probably left instructions to make him very tall and very imposing.
Yeah. It works with the characters, yeah, like what you said, the narcissism to it, right?
Yeah. I mean, he has a very cult leader feel to him, so you'd expect him to be towering or you looking down at you, that kind of thing. So I think if they ever did anything like flashbacks or visions or dreams, it would be really interesting that he's not that big. I mean, if they wanted him to appear that big, they could very easily do it. They could put me on a couple of boxes and no one would know. But I think other options are much more interesting that he really is nowhere near that height.
Yeah, that would be like a very like juxtaposition to like what we've seen him for. And I
Right.
think I think I think the swoosh, like sort of the yeah, juxtaposition, what I say is like really what captivates audiences with that whole show in general. Like it's the things don't really line up the way they're supposed to be. Like there's some sort of social awkwardness that is like again that eerie tone. It's like again, I feel like it's like an extended season of Black Mirror. Like that's sort of the genre I'm thinking of.
I always compare it to the Twilight Zone because I'm older than you, and it makes me think
Do 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 do
Twilight
do
Zone.
do do. Yeah, I know the Twilight Zone. I got it. I grew up making fan films when I was little. About like so I had Nightmare on Conrad Street, and like I used to like film and stuff like that. One thing that Perpetuity Ring just reminded me when I was originally watching that, and you talk about the scratchiness of the recordings.
Mhm.
Have you ever have you ever played the game or I guess heard of the game BioShock
No,
by any chance?
no.
Okay. It's long story. I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but it's basically like 1930s alternate history where like they've made I guess a society for like I guess rich affluent people, but it's like under the ocean.
Oh,
And as like everything's going to hell in that and like crazy experiments from labs are happening and they have like recordings because it's very like lo-fi like 1930s technology, but it's also like a lots of like mutations and stuff like that. It's a really cool like story. I really wish they would adapt it into more media so people can experience that story. But that's what it sort of reminded me of.
do you watch Silo on Apple TV? That's a similar feeling to what you're describing.
No, I haven't, but like now that we have no
Yeah.
Friday show right now, Silo is
Silo's a
sort of on the
post-apocalyptic thing where they live underground in these silos and don't know about the other silos, and everything's very low tech but it's in the
okay, like another game comes to mind, Fallout, like a lot
yeah,
like that.
Fallout,
So
yes. I auditioned for Fallout,
okay.
actually. Yeah. I didn't know the game, but I did watch the show and liked it very much.
Yeah. No, and that's another like, so Severance would be on the, I guess, the side of, like, mildly thriller, like, kinda disturbing, and, like, the tone of it is, like, there is humor, but it's put into a setting that it's, like, uncomfortable, whereas Fallout has a very, like, it should be a dreadful environment, a dreadful setting,
Yeah.
but it's played as humor, so it's almost the reverse of Severance.
Right. Severance is like a very smart psychological thriller. I often compare our creator, Dan Erickson, with Rod Serling from Twilight Zone because it's a very well thought out kind of intelligent social commentary, uh, comedic, but the comedy is in the situations, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the social commentary would be something to, like, touch on because, I guess I don't know. I've had the the daydream of, like, just being able to, like, skip work, like, fast forward it. I think it happened I think I thought about that when I watched, like, Adam Sandler's Click back in the day, when he has the remote and he can, like, fast forward to, like, his job promotion or fast forward to not fighting with his wife or something like that. And then he realizes, I guess, as he's skipping that over, that he's skipping most of his life,
Right.
right? And then I guess that might be the same sort of message we're having here in Severance.
Yeah. He's missing the interpersonal relationships, like Audi Mark, isn't having the same rich interpersonal relationships any Mark is having with Helly and things like that. He's
Right.
missing out on all that to a certain extent.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, like, I guess, like, there has to be that compare and contrast in life. Like, you kinda have to do the suffering a little bit
Yeah.
so that you can appreciate the good stuff,
There's
right?
no light without dark. There's no dark without light.
Yeah.
Right? It's all opposite.
And that's a good way to put it. And I remember reading this novella in my literature class in university. It's called The Ones Who Walk Away from Omaha. And essentially, it's this community, utopian, everything's great. And then when you come of age, there's only one thing you have to do to be initiated into this community, and is you have to go into this weird shack, I guess, and once you open a door to this locked room, there's, like, a child chained up, pretty much, like, just starving to death, I guess, like, well, fed, but, just basically imprisoned. And the only way that you can join this utopia is if you accept the fact that this child is going to be just living like this for their life or whatever. And I guess, and then that's why it's the one who walks away from Omaha.
Right.
So, and then because I was thinking about the novella as I'm watching the show. It's like you have to be okay with a version of yourself or a consciousness of yourself working endlessly. And,
Yeah.
like, that's just the moral sacrifice I guess you have to do,
Right.
right? Interesting.
Kind of dystopian society thing, like the film Logan's Run or something like that, where at 30, they think they're going to another place, but they're actually being killed, but they don't realize that.
Oh, eerie. Like, I was a big horror movie fan growing up, and, there's so many different, ways you can impart that tension on people. This sort of, segues into my question here about, how do you get into, like, the role of someone like, um, Kier Eagan, who is, like, by far, like, I guess, like, the closest thing to Hitler you could possibly say in the show. How do you pull empathy? Because you have to have an empathy of the character you're playing. You have to understand where they're coming from, their motives, and everything like that. How do you get to play someone that's so, like, again, your performance, even by just a voice, has the presence. There's no there's no part of my mind when I'm watching it that it's an actor reading lines.
No,
And
thank
I
you.
was wondering how I guess that's, like, the best compliment
It
ever,
is.
eh? But it's
Ex-
true. Yeah. How do you find that empathy to that character so that you can play him as convincing as you are?
Um, well, I don't look at him as bad. I honestly don't know that he is bad. I don't know the whole story, and I don't have all the information.
I guess so. Yeah,
Um,
good point.
I I look at him as someone who, from what I know of the story, who's trying to create a world without pain, who's trying to help people in his mind anyway, or at least that's the story he's putting out there. Uh, so that's what I know. What I have to rely on, because I'm pretty much usually by myself, is the script pages I get in Ben's direction. That's pretty much all I have to work with at this point, anyway. So, we'll see where that goes. But it's a challenge, and I'm glad you think it's working. Um,
No, it definitely is. And what's something that's just occurred to me, I guess, is that maybe you being, I guess, apart from the other actors for the most part, um, because you think of the mind of Kier Eagan. He's a tech right now, as far as we know, he's not alive in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
So he's actually not he doesn't have an understanding or the relationship of the with the severed people,
Correct.
right? He has a vision of what he wanted to entail
Right.
and like to showcase, but I guess he doesn't see in real time what the audience sees.
Well,
So
Severance, the procedure, wouldn't have been even conceived or created until long after he was dead.
right.
He
Yeah,
he started Lumen and the pharmaceutical company, but Ms. Cobell, we know now, discovered created the whole Lumen chip, and the whole Severance, not the Lumen chip, the Severance chip, and that whole procedure.
right, yeah.
So that's long after Kier. Uh, but going back to what you had said before as well, if you go to someone who has more to work with, someone like Britt Lauer, who plays Helly and Helena, she can't, when she's playing Helena, she can't think Helena is a bad person, whether she is or not, or we wouldn't care. She has to find things in her that she relates to, which she does beautifully. But
Yeah, and I find especially for that actress, and she can't sever herself when she's playing the 2 characters.
right,
So, yeah, I guess it probably takes a skill set or at least, concentrated effort not to empathize with the other character
right.
while she's being the other character.
And certainly in season 2, the first, like, 4 episodes, that's real skill when she actually is Helena pretending to be Helly, and that's hard, and not letting the audience know.
I was not convinced till the absolute end of that episode who was who.
Right.
Like, I had no idea, like, I was like, "Is,
Maybe Irving's just
Irving." Yeah, I was like, "Is he a psycho? He's gone, he's lost it," right?
maybe really gonna drown an innocent person.
Yeah, exactly, and, like, that's the tension, that's, like, when we're, like, biting our popcorn or, like, just, like, ugh,
But that
and,
that's when it's good TV or a good film, when that happens, so they did that beautifully.
right, and, the thing I like about that, because we're referencing all these, like, amazing scenes, and, like, the atmosphere that you put into it, and but it really is a miracle, like any TV or, like, sort of storytelling, because everything has to align to make it good cinema, like, it's the acting, it's the writing, it's the set design, it's I, like I'm trying to tell this to my students right now, it's like, just wait until something's missing, and you'll
Yeah.
notice it right away,
And
right?
and the fact that, uh, season 1 took 3 years to make and season 2 took 3 years to make, because of various things, COVID in season 1 and the actors strike in season 2, actually benefited the show because they really worked on it. They really thought it out, and they really put together a group of, like, the finest people, that might not have happened if it had gone quickly. They really thought everything out and really took their time and really, Severance isn't filmed in sequence either. Uh, the whole all the episodes for the season are filmed at once by location. So they'll go to the Bell Labs in New Jersey, which is the exterior of Lumen and the lobby of Lumen, and film all those scenes. And then they'll go to wherever, Mark's house or Devin's house and film all those scenes. So for those actors, it's very difficult. They're filming things from different times and different places in the season out of sequence.
Yeah, I guess that adds a whole 'nother, um mental load of mental capacity to like the actors because again they have to pretend they don't know stuff.
Right, and it means Dan, the creator and writer, and, Ben, as the director, have to be very sharp and know what's going on, and they have to have great continuity people around them, making sure, everything's right, because it's very easy to make a mistake that way, which they don't do,
Yeah,
luckily.
I guess it really takes a village. Hey,
It
like
does.
like
With this show,
everyone
it
has to
does.
be on
It really does.
your presence on the like your physical presence on the sets are pretty limited because a lot of your stuff is in the recording studio, but you did get a chance to be on set when the animatronic came on at the probably the best episode of the season. I think I thought it was.
I really liked it as well, yeah. I'm a fan, and I really enjoyed that episode as well.
Yeah, that's cool because, like, I guess we can fanboy out about the actual show together. I was actually, like, apprehensive. I was nervous because I was like, "Oh, no, this is the last episode." I
Right.
was like, I can't wait till the next one," right? But I do actually have some, like, personal connections that I really liked about it is because, my father and my fiancée are from Newfoundland, the island of Newfoundland, or Canada,
Mhm.
and, my dad was born in Bonavista. And, that's where they filmed all
Yes.
the I think upstate New York, I guess, like that, what it's supposed to be, but, yeah, I was like, because 'cause I've been there multiple times, and I'm watching it, I'm like, "I literally know that road." Like, and that was a cool connection 'cause, Newfoundland doesn't get a lot of love anywhere else, and I was like, "That's really sweet to see."
Don't they film
Too bad you did.
don't they film all the stuff when, Ms. Cobell goes back to the ether factory? Isn't that all in Newfoundland? Is that
Yeah, that's all my dad's hometown, and, like, of course, but it's funny when you're watching that when you are, I guess, familiar with the place, you can immediately identify, "Okay, that was composited in."
right.
Like, that didn't exist there,
Well, that
and I
living in New York because so much is filmed in New York. There are 9 out of 10 movies I go to or shows that I watch that film in New York. I know locations. They're like, "Oh, that's outside my building. That's down the street. I take that subway." So
yeah, I guess, and then because like, Canada, we're pretty isolated, like, nothing is really, um, set in Canada. A lot of stuff is filmed in Canada, but nothing's set in Canada.
right.
So,
Except the music
yeah, like
away, which takes place in Newfoundland,
oh, right, yeah,
where the
it's
planes have
the 9/11 one.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's, man, you go to Newfoundland, like, that's the key to fame, like, everyone
It lives
loves
in
that one.
Newfoundland show.
Again, we talked about your presence on screen and just, all it takes to make a cool or, like, an interesting show, and I think when I say interesting show, I mean, it's the relatability, it's the connection, because 'cause you're trying to find a universal connection to people, and I find, like, the best shows have a universal connection that, crosses cultures, and when I super get all, like, sappy with my film studies students, like, I'm trying to be the teacher underneath the tree, like, being, like, super philosophical or whatnot, I always talk about how, like, the visual arts, like, just film and media in particular, they have to hit certain emotions when you're portraying it, and if you do something well and something hits the largest amount of audience with the same impact, what we do discover is that there's a universal truth in terms of, like, how people react to stuff, and, I feel like acting puts that in the play, and I don't know if I'm overzealousing it and making it bigger than it is. But as someone who works in this industry as a voice actor, as an actor, um, is that ever like in your top of mind, or is it ever part of your training where you're trying to think about how do I um, reach the largest audience I can?
I actually don't ever think that way, only because I think it would hurt more than help. I think the idea of trying to do what someone wants or trying to do what you think people will like is never a good idea. It stops you from bringing to the table who you are and what your ideas are, what make you individual, what make you interesting. I think that's why a lot of things you see don't work because the primary goal for money reasons is to appeal to as many people as possible. So you lose a lot of the individuality, a lot of the eccentricity of things. And Severance doesn't do that. Severance kind of celebrates the eccentricity and the individuality and the strangeness.
Yeah, I get that point. I guess like what I was trying to say is like when you're not trying, but then when you do effectively convey like sort of like primal emotions like fear or like disgust or like and then like joy and happiness, like I feel like one of the indicators of success is when you get your audience to feel what you intended them to feel.
Right.
And I feel like just doing that um, shows some sort of universality
Definitely.
and like
Like,
everyone.
you know what relates directly to that, which I think they did beautifully in the final episode, the very last moments, at the doorway with Mark and Gemma and Helly, and
Yeah, yeah. I
that does that exactly what you're saying. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that choice, that feeling, that being drawn in two directions, and that's pretty universal. So I think relate to that.
I had it, like, 2 parts of my mind were going, like, just, sounding alarms when I was doing that. I was like I had the reasonable person being like, "Okay, like, no, like, our goal, like, we get out." But then, any mark, I was like, "Oh, like, this is, like, survival instincts 101."
Well, he doesn't know her. He just knows Stacy, the lady from Wellness. He doesn't know. So why would he go with her? But you don't after watching the show, you're thinking, "Oh, he's Mark, and they're gonna go out," you don't see that, but if you really think about it, she's a stranger to him.
Yeah, and, like, I guess sometimes we forget as audiences that we have a perspective that is more encompassing than any individual character in the show. Like, we're, like, sort of the deity looking down at it, like, playing with our toys or whatever. We, like, sort of know what's
We
going
have
on.
all the information as the viewer
Yeah,
that they don't have.
because I guess when you think about it, like, because he has such more of a relationship with Heliar,
Definitely.
right? Like, that's the love of his life, actually.
Exactly, and you have to also, take into consideration that all of the innies are kind of like, 8-year-olds. They have no life experience, they're learning. They're naive and innocent, and they don't know a lot of things that we know. They don't have the emotional, breadth that we have of having gone through experiences. They're like preschool when they go to work. They're all going to nursery school. They have their machine, and they do their little things, and
Like, what is the thing about, like, when they initially get in a new innie and they're like, they have, like, a set of questions, like,
they
what,
say, "Who are you?"
where?
You
Yeah.
"What's can you name a state?" That kind of thing.
Yeah, so I guess they have a skill set, like the punctual skill set in terms of, like, reading, writing, understanding,
Right.
but, yeah, they're a complete blank slate after that, and,
Exactly.
man, imagine if that happened if that was a reality, how dangerous people would be.
Right. It's
Like,
if all your experience is taken away, but you don't have any experiences to draw on. You don't have anything to, there are no tools in your toolbox other than what you're learning at the moment.
yeah, and that makes me, like, go back to, like, the overarching plot, I guess with Gemma, Miss Casey, it took me a couple episodes to really, like, pin together what the hell they were doing, with
Talk about
that
a
whole
slow burn. I mean,
I know.
all of season
The
one, you barely see her. You only see her a couple of times, and then she becomes a really major character in season two to the point of having a whole episode that's just hers.
Yeah, and, I think I have, a difference like, there was an experience difference in experience with me watching the 1st season and 2nd season because I caught the 1st season late, like, I binged it,
Hmm.
and I wonder how it would have felt if I waited till the very end to binge Severance, because, did feel different to me, like, watching the pacing,
Hmm.
right? And I wonder if, like, to any extent, that if you've ever had, like, a conversation with the writers or just reading the script yourself and your opinion, do you think people nowadays with the streaming service, do they have that in the back of their mind? It's like, is someone's gonna binge this or is someone gonna pure episodically watch this? And does it change anything?
I don't. I don't think they take that really into consideration. I could be totally wrong, but I don't think they do. Um, Especially because it is on a streaming service, and I know just I read a lot of comments online, and a lot of people didn't see season 1. After season 1, when it got a lot of attention, people tuned in for season 2, and right before it, binged all of season 1, much like you did. Some people are just finding out about it now and binging the whole thing at once and watching it like a continuous movie. Uh, so I don't know if they took that into consideration. I'm guessing no.
Yeah, yeah, I guess, like, story comes first.
Yeah.
Like, what are you trying to say? And then the execution is all details,
Well,
right?
Dan also has an end game. I mean, he wrote the whole thing. He knows how it ends. He knows what's going on. It's not being written as we go along. I mean, the actual scripts are, the individual ones are certainly being written as we go along, but the outline of where it starts, where it ends, and how we get there, took 10 years to, write it. So he's been, yeah, while he was working in a job at a door factory, uh, which actually comes into one of the episodes when Dylan goes to get a job at a door factory because Dan
Oh,
was
that's
working at a
cool.
door factory when he wrote it. But so he knows where it's going and how we get there, which is important because I find a lot of things, movies, television, books, whatever nowadays, uh, fall apart at the end. They don't know how to end things. But this is so thought out and such a long process that you know, I don't think people would just be disappointed. I think he knows exactly how to get there and and where he's going.
Because you can tell when people don't have a plan.
Yeah,
Um, like, back at, like, and I'll keep referencing these, but I loved, like, when I was a kid, I loved Nightmare on Elm Street, and I saw each progressive movie get stupider, stupider, right?
that happens
Because
sequels a lot,
yeah,
especially when those big chains that have 10 versions of it, like that or Alien or the ones that have so many Scream that have so many films.
yeah. It's basically, remaking the same movie over and over again in some sense, right? Mind you, when I say that, I did love Alien Romulus. I thought that was, like,
Well, the
visually
second Alien's excellent. Aliens is really good.
yeah,
Not
Jim
only,
Cameron changed that up, yeah.
you know, he and
Yeah, because
Drover and, it would, but then at a certain point, there's only so much you can do. And, you've told the story, but people want to keep making money, so they keep telling it.
yeah, and, I think, like, Vince Gilligan with, his AMC, like, with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, I think those are prime examples of knowing when to quit. Like, this is, like, the end game, this is the end game.
I think the British with television do that very, very, very well. They don't drag things out until they're dead. They know this is going to be 2 seasons. This is going to be 1 season. This is going to be 3 seasons. You don't see these, you know, 9 season shows coming from British television. Usually, they do it, and then when it's done, it's done. For instance, the show Queer as Folk, which started as an English show with I think 2 seasons long in England, and that was about 10 seasons long in the U.S., telling the same story. So
Yeah, no, I guess, the structure of how you release something and, like, your end goal, and I guess your conscientiousness when you're creating a world is you do wanna have that end goal, and I'm actually super it's almost like a relief that I know that there is a factual, planned ending in Severance because, I guess if you are watching it episode by episode and you aren't really, um, I guess, focused on the small details, you could mistake it as randomness.
but nothing Severance is random. There are no
I know, and that's the thing, right? It's like you're looking now at, like,
you think something's a mistake, but it's not. It's so detailed and so specific. They know exactly what they're doing.
yeah, and, I remember watching the behind the scenes of the camera, like, the opening scene of season 2. They had to do a lot of, like, CGI basically just to get the camera rig moving and everything like that, and I remember having a conversation with my fiancé. I'm like, in order to do that, you have to understand that, like, everything in that scene is on purpose. Like, every detail on the lines of the door, the lighting, um, even the camera movement, because the camera is an actor, so to say, because it's experiencing, like, right, it's showing dread, it's showing, suspense or, claustrophobia is a big one I find that but by the time what you were saying is, like, nothing's by mistake, everything's on purpose.
Right.
By, I guess, halfway through season 1, I was, like, looking at the numbers, like, I paused, looking at the numbers on the screen that they're trying to sort. I was, like, trying to figure out, "Okay, what is there a date in there or something?" And then, I guess we didn't see it that it was actually because it had something to do with emotion. I was thinking it's like I thought it was like a mind control thing. I thought, okay, they're seeing what things trigger certain emotions on people.
Because they block that. They're trying to, with Gemma, they're trying to see if the severance chip will hold, if it'll keep her from experiencing those emotions. If she'll, how far can you go and still not remember anything from the trying to block out?
And then almost poetically, it was like the whole take my hand and like it broke through whatever that technology was doing.
Right.
I thought that was really well done.
Which is why James Eagan, when he's watching it and she does take his hand, screams because not because she's leaving, but because it's the wall is breaking, it's remembering, and it's not holding.
And then, so, like, initially I thought, okay, they're gonna have some sort of algorithm that they could play at mass to control people. That was my whole theory, armchair theory as I was watching season 1 and the start of season 2. Then when Gemma came into play again and you saw each of those doors, I'm like, "Oh, man, the chills I had. Imagine just being your whole existence, just going to the dentist,
Right.
like, over and over again." Then now I'm confused of what the end goal is. Like, I guess everyone is, and that's what it's supposed to be like. I guess, like, do you have it, like, because you don't know, I assume that they keep it total tight locker. Do you have any, like, ideas? Like,
I have thoughts, but they're just no more valid than anybody else's thoughts because I don't know. I absolutely
right.
don't know. I just trust that they do.
Yeah, and, like, I guess, like, Severance in itself is some sort of, like, Elseworld, right? It's not like, I'm trying to pin a date in it. I don't know if they ever explicitly
Well,
say what year it
no,
is.
they very intentionally don't, which is why I mean, you see dates like on Mark's license, you can see years, some like on they show it, things like that. But they also say things like, I think they say something about 206 countries, and there aren't 206 countries. The number is higher, than it actually is, or the initials for the state they're in is not a real state. I mean, that we know of. In the United States, there's no state with those initials. Um,
All right.
and the cars aren't the right time period, and nothing's exactly right. Everything's a little off.
Yeah,
And
and
I don't
that's
we don't know why that is, but it's for a reason.
the out of place setting or the decombobulated, like, setting with, like, the out of time cars and, like, I guess what you alluded to, like, the weird it's not a state or
Right.
the misconceptions with how much countries. In a way, like, even if you that's not really relevant to the plot, that sort of elicits that response of, "This is uncomfortable" to
Right.
the audience.
Well, even like, this kinda goes on another tangent, but when Mark and, Helly in the final episode are talking and she's trying to remember states because that's something they ask you in season 1 when you wake up on the table, the name of state, and she remembers Delaware, which is a real state, obviously. But then she says to him, "The equator," and they're like, "Is that a state? Is that a building? What is the equator? We're gonna meet at the equator because they don't know what it is. They just know they know the word, but they don't know what the word relates to.
Yeah, I was actually confused about that whole conversation. I don't know, it went over my head. I was like,
Or they're just naive.
y
They
yeah.
recollections of they certain things come through. They remember things, but they don't quite know what they are physically.
So, in terms of, like, what you're doing, like, I assume you're gonna continue, Severance in any way they'll take you. Like, as if I was in your shoes, I'd be like, "Please, like,
I'm up
sign
for
me
it.
up."
Whatever they wanna do, I'm there for it.
I guess going back to, like, the audition thing, because I had it in my head and then we got caught on our tangent, which I love, is that when Ben and, Dave is the other creator, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Erickson.
Dan, okay. I just sometimes I miss the credits, but, Dan and Ben, when they're interviewing you, it is sometimes it's fun thought experiment to think about because you said that in the waiting room, there is a lot of people your age, but didn't look like you.
And they were tall
So when I
people.
right. When I'm thinking of that, I'm like, how much of how much of their, I guess, cast pick, like they have a archetype of who this character is, but they're really looking for, I guess, the undecided of like, they could have gone with someone that like a different ethnicity, maybe like, more hair, I guess, on the rather than the beard on the head, right? But when they see someone, when you have like an audition for the likeness, I wonder how much of your likeness molded the direction that they went with the character.
I'm sure to a certain extent. I think that feeds into what you were saying about the kind of gravitas feel of the character, even though it's just a voice. I think a lot of that's probably what they were looking for when people came in to see if someone projected a kind of gravitas that you would believe they could be a cult leader, that you believe they could have started a company in this time period. Um, I saw an interview with John Turturro and Ben when they were talking, and John Turturro said something very flattering. He said something about, "Oh, well, when I saw the picture on the wall in the office and the statue, I would follow that person." He said, which I thought was great. I was so happy about that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you saw, a picture on the wall in the office that was someone that you'd be like, that was very generic looking, and you might not have the same feeling. I'm very specific looking, if I'm right for something,
Right.
or if I'm
Distinct.
not, I'm not. Uh, in the picture in the office, I have no beard. I have a mustache, and I'm clean shaven, and have shorter hair.
Maybe they're thinking like the malleable, like, oh, we can like adjust this guy for whatever we need him into. Like maybe that had a fact.
Quite possibly, quite possibly. I mean, I'm not in their mind, so I don't know, but
Right. Yeah. I know it's but like I guess that's what makes us human.
right.
Theory of mind. We can
That's another
think about what other people are thinking.
that's another thing about acting as a profession. Also, with auditions especially, you can't second guess. You can't try to be what someone wants when you walk into a room, because you'll inevitably fail if you do that. Your ace in the hole is your individuality and bringing in who you are. If you try to be what you think they want, then it's just going to be a watered down version. It's not going to work, most likely.
Right. So like I think so you would say like when you get the material, whatever material that was for your audition, you looked at it almost in a vacuum. You're like, what would this guy be to me?
Right.
And then gave your best shot at it. And if they did like it, they did like it. If they didn't, they didn't.
And if you look at as a whole, the show as a whole, all the casting, if you really take a look at it, everyone is very visually interesting. No one's really what you see on other shows to a certain extent. I mean, whether it's Gwendolyn Christie's extreme height, or I don't know, everybody has something. John Turturro is a very specific face. Christopher Walken's a very specific face. They're not going for a very generic Hollywood kind of thing. They're going for something that you can believe, where people are. The whole cast visually is kind of as off as the whole feel of the show is. There's something
Yeah.
everyone that's not quite what you think. It's that kind of thing.
And it kind of collides with the department, like the building itself that they're working with, because the building itself is so clean and like symmetrical. And then you have like the random dudes off the street that we pulled up to do this, right? That's what it feels like. Yeah. And again, like what you said about it, it's like all intentional. Like it's like, oh, we didn't just happenstance this. Like this is
And that
what it
also
was.
is much more universal. When you go see a film or something where everyone looks like a Hollywood movie star and they're all just perfect,
Yeah, the
it's
teeth.
it's not as universal.
Forget it. Yeah.
Suddenly not as universal, because those people aren't you. When you look at, when someone watches Severance, looks at it, I'm sure everyone can find someone that's them in Severance, where you can't always do that in a TV show or a movie, because Hollywood is, generally so obsessed with, just beautiful perfection kind of thing.
Yeah, the tip of the top. And like I think like a totally different field, but I hopefully I can communicate it in a way that you understand like the similarities. But when I'm teaching, and I'm teaching the random kids from around whatever neighborhood the school happens to be at, there's like such a unique and diverse demographic, especially here in Canada, that I have to pull from, I guess, myself, things that I can work with to relate with the students. And it's not even pulling sometimes. It's just like they bring it out. I tell my friends that aren't teachers, is like, oh, I'm a stand-up comedian I have 5 shows a day, every day of my life. Like that's what it is. And I think like
That mentality and having to do that probably makes you a much more effective teacher, because they can relate. If someone's coming into the classroom to teach them that they can't relate to at all, or isn't trying to relate to them,
yeah.
and that's going to distance them. But if you're obviously actively trying to relate to whoever it is you're teaching.
Yeah, and make it fun. And like some of it, like again, what we're talking about when you go into an audition is like, I don't know the kids, right? So like you may have an idea of what Ben Stiller like wants, right? But you have purposely been trained not to like ignore that. But sometimes I go into a group of kids that I have no idea who they are. So the number one thing that I have to do is just be the most authentic person I could be.
Exactly. With
And I think,
auditions, you're not going into that room to teach them thinking, what do they want me to be? You're going in thinking, I'm going to be me, which is what you have to
yeah,
do in an audition too.
like how can I be the best person, best version of myself?
That
Like, I have quirky things. I'm a track and field athlete, but I'm also like a super nerd when it comes to tech. And like, how can I utilize my personality traits to effectively engage with every one of my students? It's not like I'm changing my personality,
exactly.
but I'm pulling from aspects of my life to hit those
Right.
targets.
And those are kind of your superpowers that, the things that make you individual.
And yeah, I guess that is the connection between acting because I guess acting, you're pulling from yourself. And I gotta go back to when you said like, oh, Ben Stiller, like I think it was Ben or Dan, he was saying like, that's someone I would follow,
That
right?
was John
So that's
Turturro.
the pot.
John Turturro.
Oh, okay. That's the positive takeaway. But I was gonna say before you said that, how do you take like, oh, that guy looks like a really good cult leader?
I like that actually. You call leaders actually. So, um,
Uh,
I mean, that's something that's again in my toolbox. That's something I know the things that I can play, and that's in there. That's something I can do. That's something my look works for. So, I mean, my hair is like pulled back now, but right now my hair is very long. So I would really look like a cult leader if I let it all down. I actually, if my hair's not pulled back like this, I look like that mask that Dylan puts on at the waffle party. That has the.
oh, cool.
That's why that mask looks like that because that's what my hair looked like when I auditioned.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Me, that mask is the closest of all the images probably to me of what I really look like on a daily basis.
Right. Yeah, because I think I heard somewhere, I watched a podcast somewhere that like, so I guess you started out with all like for your audition, just like the long hair, the beard, but when you're taking the photos and doing all the set stuff, that they like slowly trimmed your beard and made you look younger throughout the day to take all those
Yeah.
paintings.
They slowly cut the hair, they slowly cut the beard, they slowly dyed the hair, slowly dyed the beard. They slowly added more makeup so that, yeah, I got younger and younger and younger and younger and young, as young as I was able to end up looking, it was possible. I mean, they couldn't make me look 23 or anything, but,
I don't know. They could maybe.
uh, yeah,
Depends how much money they put into it.
sure they could, but, we didn't. I did give them actual photos of myself at different ages as well. I gave them, like, pictures of me at 9 that they used for, like, that youthful convalescence of Kier picture, or the Ether Factory. I gave them a picture of myself when I was, like, 25 and had a mustache, and it looks exactly like that thing where he's stirring the pot. They just almost duplicated it.
I got actually got like a business question of that, or I guess some insight into the industry because when like being like the actor that's playing a real-time character that's on stage all the time is something. But if I was like, let's say an executive that was looking at dollars and dollar signs, sometimes I would think if I wasn't as informed as I am now, is that you would just like sell your likeness license to them. And then they would, I guess, AI or whatever they would do with your likeness and just send you the check and leave you on the way. But they actually like involved you all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly shows and films that are done that way. They chose not to, and I'm very glad they did choose not to. Uh, but yeah, but I think that just again shows their forethought and that they had thought this out and that they knew, there'd be more things that they wanted to do, and that wasn't the road to go.
Yeah. And I even with the voice that you had to audition for your own voice, which is wild. How much of like a pain in the ass that would be to find another voice and then have to like dub it on your already established likeness.
Right. Well, but in the voice I use in the show doesn't sound all that much like me either. I mean,
Right.
especially in perpetuity, it doesn't sound anything like me.
Like
But
dropped and sick
it's
and
lower and it's sickly. But even in the little, Borscht Belt comedy routine in the final episode that I do with Trammell, back and forth, it doesn't really sound the way I sound right now when I'm talking to you. It's much
no.
lower and slower, and it's much more. Thank you for that feedback, Seth. It's much more that, but I don't
Oh,
talk like that.
yeah. It's cool that you can just turn that on. Like that's
It's funny because in my head, I think back to the beginnings of what I think happened with Kier and the beginnings of everything, which is based on nothing except the little facts I've noticed that you've probably seen too. But I kind of picture him in the beginning as kind of a snake oil salesman, huckster, kind of Wizard of Oz kind of, person. So I have a very snake feeling in mind. So when they gave me that final line of "Thank you for that feedback, Seth," I was so glad his name had that TH at the end because I could kind of hiss it. It was kind of like a Seth. It was like Ka in the Seth. Yeah.
I find a certain level of like disgust in Kier's voice. He's
Oh, there is.
always
Yeah.
talking, yeah, talking down to someone or um
It's a condescending.
high in my,
He has a very condescending quality.
yeah, that's the
Well,
thing I'm
if
looking at.
you just look around Lumen at all the pictures and the statues and the wax figures, and they've reproduced his house and his bed, sounds like a pretty condescending person, someone who might they're a little above the rest of the world.
Yeah. I guess I pulled that probably from the environment that I didn't even know that, but, like, the voice when you hear it, it's like seems like I'm getting, like, yelled at by my boss.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's the whole point, right?
Well, it's
Yeah.
fine from my point of view, sir, and that's what I was thinking. I don't know if that's what they had in mind, prior to me doing it, but that's certainly how it came out of me, and then they liked it. So, with film and television, you can shoot things several times in several ways, and they can pick the one they like the best. So you can try different things. In theater, you're doing it the same way every night, and once you decide in rehearsal what it is, that's what it is. But with a television show, they can take multiple takes. I was just listening to an interview. I wasn't there for the actual scene, but I was listening to an interview with Ben and Trammell about in the final episode when he gives the letter to Dylan to read and then runs out of the room. And that apparently wasn't in the script, and nor did they expect it to happen. And the camera doesn't even follow him because they weren't ready for it. He like goes, and they only did it that way once. They did several takes, and that's the one they picked 'cause it was so natural and so funny. Because he had a place to go. He has to go get ready for the band and to do his show and to do this. So he dashed out of there.
Oh, that's the most, relatable thing I've ever had with teaching. Like, that's all I do all day is run around, like, solve problems, put out fires. I had, like, 3 meetings yesterday between, like, the student teachers that I'm mentoring to become teachers, and then I had an interview for another position back, in another province, and all between that, I'm doing, like, school community, jumping around, having to help a student with his edit that he's working on for his, Three Little Pigs film project or whatever. And I'm like, by the end of it, like, it's like 3 o'clock and I haven't had lunch yet because I'm running around. So that was the relatable scene, me and Mr. Milchick.
Did you tell your student to base his Three Little Pigs film on Nightmare on Elm Street? Call it Little Pigs on Elm Street,
Uh, Little pigs.
like you did?
That would okay, so the whole origin of that is my mom is one of those moms that let me watch movies, like horror movies since I was like 7 years old.
Me too.
Because we always like
My mother took me to the
it's
Ex
court
when I was like 12.
to what?
To see The Exorcist when I was like 12.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah.
She was scared.
Yeah, I love, The Exorcist 3. That is my favorite one,
Oh,
like, yeah,
Heretic.
the We Are Legion, we are every like that.
That has this perhaps the scariest shot of all time when he walks out of the room and the person with the sheet comes out after him
Yeah,
in the
and
hospital.
there's
Big
not a
house.
lot to that, but it's scary, and it's that is, like and then it cuts to the statue right after
Right.
it, I think I remember it.
Yeah.
That is ingrained in my head, like, and there's no fancy not there's no sound in that jump cut
None
that doesn't really belong, right? Nothing. Yeah,
happens. It's just
and
you just don't expect it.
yeah, it's like, oh, like the,
You look at I'm
yeah,
a huge horror movie fan. Huge, huge.
yeah.
And if you look at that scene, the really interesting thing is he comes out of that hospital room and he closes the door. And then the person who comes out with the sheet never reopens the door. They walk right through it. So it's kind of interesting that the door never reopens. They just come through.
Oh my god. Yeah. No, that adds another weirdness to it. The first because I've had this conversation before, and the first person I've had this conversation with was my grade 6 teacher. He's, like, doing, like, the overhead thing and the notes, and, like, this is a guy that we get to, like if we, like, get him on the right topic, he's just gonna ramble and, like, we'll get out of math or whatever. And, like, he was explaining because we were talking about some crappy horror movie that came out or whatever, and he's like, "No, nothing's, like, as good as, like, these movies," and, like, he was explaining, like, how it is the quintessential jump scare because it adds terror, and this is the first time everyone, told me the difference between terror and being, like, scared or horror is that terror is you know it's coming and you can't do anything about it. So when the nurse is like getting all her stuff in order and it really hangs on that shot,
Mm.
you're sitting there like
You know something's coming,
something.
but when?
Yeah.
When's it gonna happen?
Yeah.
It's funny because, George C. Scott, who stars in that, is in another film that does the same thing. He's in a film called The Changeling. Have you seen that with Melvin Douglas? That
No, I haven't.
has a famous scene with a ball that he's in a haunted house sort of, and there's a ball that like keeps rolling into the room that out of nowhere, and he takes it and drives away like miles and miles and miles and throws it off a bridge into a river just to get rid of it. And then he goes home and closes the door, and as soon as he closes the door, it bounces down the stairs
Comes back.
up to his feet.
Oh, the Changeling, that's
The
what it's called?
Changeling, yeah.
The Changeling, okay.
The
That and also reminds me of In the Mouth of Madness.
Yes.
Yeah,
Clive Barker.
Sam Neill stars
No,
in that.
it's Stephen King, right? Mouth of Madness, or is it Clive Barker? I know the movie.
Uh,
The author.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just know that has a lot of themes of like,
I think it's Stephen
uh,
King. He's writing
like
everything he's writing is coming true. That
it's about an author, so it has to be about Stephen King, but it's like it reminded me a lot of like Lovecraftian,
Yeah, very much so.
horror too, like that. Yeah, and that's like when they're trying to escape the town and they just keep getting in
Yeah.
circles, and the paper boy just keeps getting older. I think like it's just weird and uncomfortable, and I don't know why.
Do you watch the series From on television?
From no, I
Uh,
haven't.
the similar thing. They're all stuck in a town. There's no way out. You can't no matter where you drive, you end up back in the town.
I think what I find scary, it's not the blood or the gore. I could watch that for days. I could eat a sandwich while watching that. It doesn't really bother me. The paranormal really scares me, and I try to break that down why that is. And I think it comes down to, let's see if you agree with me on this, like the feeling of not being in control.
Definitely.
Like you're just hopeless. Like it's like this thing is way bigger than you.
No, I totally my favorite film of all time, not just a horror film, my favorite film of all time is Rosemary's Baby, uh, which does that so beautifully that, from moment one, you know what's going on, but you can't stop it. And everyone seems to be in on it except the hero. Everyone else is in on it.
Oh man, I could keep you for days with this. It's funny because my fiance hates horror movies. Like she just can't stand them. I know. It's
The psychological horror, though, like we were saying, something like The
mhm.
Heretic or Rosemary's Baby, or yeah, more slashy. Right. The modern day equivalents are things like Hereditary or The Witch. Those are all
Have you ever have you ever watched It Follows?
I have. I like It Follows.
Okay. I really like that was one of the movies where I'm like, "Oh, horror's back." Like, this is something I haven't got from a horror movie in forever. And I do also like the Conjuring series.
Mhm.
Um, the second one when they're in England, like, that is my
The
one of my favorite
the
ones.
people from The Conjuring, the husband and wife, Ed and Lorraine, what are their names? Ed and Lorraine, someone.
Oh, yeah.
They are from the state I'm from. They're from Rhode Island.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I think I've heard
Warren,
of it.
Ed and Lorraine Warren are real people.
Right, and they're
And
based on a true story, based or
yeah,
whatever,
they're real
right?
people who do this, who, you know, find cursed objects and such. That's an interesting thing. I saw an article recently, in the film version of something, Annabelle is that creepy porcelain doll in that dress that they put in the cabinet. In real life, Annabelle was like a Raggedy Ann.
Oh,
The
really?
real Annabelle
Okay.
they have in a real cabinet in their house is Raggedy Ann, basically, but that wouldn't have been as scary in the film. So
No, yeah, the creative liberties, like, amplify what the emotion they're trying to tell. And I think with, A Nightmare on Elm Street, like, yes, it's a slasher, but, I think what I clicked to when I was a child is that because I remember, like, having nightmares, but I had, like, the intellect knowing, "Oh, it's just a dream." I actually had a thrill of it, like, it's fun, it was like, watching another horror movie in my dream. But then, like, the concept of, like, well, no, you could actually die in your dream and you have no control over it, and you can literally use whatever is in your head that um, your insecurities or whatever to, like, attack you.
well, the
Like,
third
the
the third Nightmare on Elm Street, Patricia
Dream Warriors.
star of.
Yeah.
Miss Cobell is the star of that film. Patricia,
Oh, Krista or whatever,
the blonde girl.
Kristen.
Yeah, the one who lived.
Yeah,
Patricia Arquette.
yeah.
That was her first big film, I believe.
Oh, right. Holy crap, I didn't even know that. I did not, because like,
She's like
I
a
just
teenager. And then
Yeah.
was asked to do the next one too, but she turned it down, I think, because she didn't wanna I don't think she wanted to fall into, getting stuck in that, but, because she's the one who lives at the end of that film.
Yeah, I know, Kristen, yeah, like, her mother, uh, the person who plays her mother in Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors, it's like, she's calling her down from her bedroom or whatever, she's like, "On delay, hurry up, on delay," and, like, I literally say that to my students all the time now. But I guess she was Miss Cobell, it's like, again, it's that so I'm watching Miss Cobell, I'm not watching the actor,
Exactly.
right? Because I know her from, I guess, Medium too, like,
Mhm.
right?
Where she played
And I
right,
didn't even notice. It was, like, disguised.
in Escape from Dannemora. She's done so many interesting things.
Yeah,
Dannemora?
that's
I
awesome.
think I'm saying it wrong.
Well, if you have when you see her again, just tell her that this random dude from
Yeah.
Canada, like, for fan since Dream Warriors.
And her brother is the policeman in, Scream.
Oh, like Dewey? Like Officer Dewey
Yeah,
sort
her
of?
brother.
Like the
His last name
oh, cool.
too.
Wow.
Family
There you go.
all
Man.
in her family are movie actors.
Oh, cool. Wow, it's a family business. My dad's a coal miner, a welder, and a millwright, so that's a little different.
You didn't
Okay.
follow in the family business.
Yeah, well, I worked at a coal mine, up in Northern British Columbia, for the summer between my last and my second last and my last university, career. It was awesome.
That's a
Made, like
job you might wanna be severed in, working in a coal mine.
well, I did notice that, I worked there for 3 months. I made a boatload of money, but I aged, like, 4 years
Mm.
in that 3 months, and then, I remember working with this guy because I was a contractor, just talking to another guy there, and, he's like, "It's my birthday." I'm like, "Oh, man, like, good for you, like, 61, 62?" He's like, "No,
30.
47."
Yeah.
Yeah, like, pretty much, but seriously, I was like and that sort of made me like, "Okay, I better get my grades
So
up
I
next year," like,
think I'll
yeah.
teach.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so I know this is running long, and I love that we're, like, nerding out on horror movies, which is man, call anytime. But one thing I really want to end it off with is, like, again, this is my professional development, I guess the whole stint of the show is, A, 2 2 perspectives I want you to think of when you're dealing with this question. The students and the teacher trying to, um help the student and encourage the student. What are some, I guess, lessons that you have learned throughout lessons and wisdoms that you've learned from your journey from, being a school age yourself to, theater acting and then to now and beyond? What lessons and wisdoms would you give the students and the teachers they have to help flourish them and make them be successful?
Well, one thing right off the bat that I didn't learn until not that long ago, uh, is auditioning is the job. That's the job. When you get the part, that's the frosting, but the job is auditioning. The job is going in there and being rejected and auditioning and being rejected and auditioning, and people hate to audition, most people. Some people love it, but it's rare. Um, and that's the job. So if that's not what you're interested in, if you're just interested in the fun part and, being in the television or being in the play, then it's not the profession for you, because you're going to be rejected constantly and it's very high pressure and it's not easy. Uh, what other advice would I have? Things I've said all along while we've been talking, be yourself. That's kind of your superpower, your individuality. You have to bring to the table the best thing you can bring to the table is you, because no one else can be you. That's the one thing you have that no one else has is who you are. So don't try to hide that. Don't try to be what you think someone wants you to be. Be you. And if that's what they're looking for, then great. And if it's not, no matter what you do, you're not going to get hired. Also, if you want to be an actor, stage actor, film and television actor, very different businesses, very, very different. It's not the same thing at all. Film and television, of course, pays much better than stage pays. And the level of recognition, of course, is much, much higher. So on the film and television side, those are all pluses. On the stage side, the immediate feedback from an audience, the immediacy of being out there and there's no one that can help you. Film and TV is very much a director's medium. You do what you do, and they can edit that to be any performance they see fit to make it. On stage, it's your medium. You're out there by yourself. So in rehearsal, they tell you what they want, but you're the one out on that stage, and you get one shot every night. So it's a very different business, and that requires different skills too. Very different skills as well.
Yeah, I really love that distinction because I bet a lot of people, just normies or people that are not in like sort of plays or TV shows or movies like that, they don't really see that distinction.
I mean, not everyone can do both. Your performance on stage has to be considerably larger.
Extravagant,
Um,
overacting almost.
It has to reach people in the back row. Your performance on camera has to be very, very internal. It's all in your eyes. Everything has to be behind your eyes, and the camera sees everything. The camera doesn't lie. You know, stage you can get away with a lot more. You can't with anything with a camera 2 inches from your face. It knows.
Yeah. All the wrinkles, all the details, all the
Oh, if you talk about that, that's another thing. That's
the
yeah. If you don't like the way you look, definitely
oh,
stay on the stage because you can cover that up and change it. It's not going to happen on television or in film. And in film, you're going to be 40 feet high, so you're really going to see everything you don't like. If that's what you're looking for,
you just gotta own it,
Yeah.
whatever it is, right? All right. Well, I really appreciate you spending like an hour and a half with me just chatting and discussing.
hope something I said was useful to someone.
I really appreciate it, Mark. All hail Kier.
Praise Kier.
Thank you again.
The board has concluded this call.
Thank you for tuning in to Professional Development with me, Mr. Drover. I hope you found today's conversation insightful and inspiring. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your fellow educators. You can also connect with me on Instagram or via email to continue the conversation and share your thoughts. Well, until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep making a difference, both inside and outside the classroom. I'll see you in the next episode.